Welcome to Cards by Kendra. Today I'm sharing a video tutorial for the second of 4 cards I made with the Bubble Babies digital stamps from 7 Kids Craft Store. The first card I made was part of the Team Tiny Under the Sea video hop. You'll find a link to that video in the description box below. If you click on the hashtag in the description, you'll find a list of all the videos that were made by many talented creators that participated in the hop. So when you're finished watching this video, go check them out. For this card, I'm using a masking technique and blending Distress Oxide Inks and painting with Shimmer spray to make the background. These are some of the digital images I printed out for the cards. I used Silhouette Studio software to manipulate and layer the stamps so I could print them on 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. The stamps I used for the first card were cut out with my brother's scan and cut machine. I'm going to cut this down so it'll be easier to work with. I'm using the baby mermaid and the seahorse for this card, along with the sentiment, "I will always swim by your side." I'm using Copic markers for coloring. A list of the colors I'm using are listed on the screen and in the description box below. If you've never used digital stamps before, be sure to check out the video that I recently posted called Working with Digital Stamps, linked in the description box below. You don't have to have an electronic die cutting machine to manipulate and print the stamps. While I'm coloring, which I've sped this up quite a bit, I'll tell you a little more about me. In my first mermaid card video, I talked about my career change from a business owner to a teacher 5 years ago. This is when I was able to start my card making hobby. Over the years, I've accumulated a lot of stuff. I think I have a paper obsession and a stamp obsession. For years, I stuck with simple card making, but it wasn't until recently that I started experimenting with new techniques and mixed media. I invested in some Distress Oxide inks and several different types of blending tools. I have to say it really just depends on what I'm doing as to which blending tool I like best. I really like the domed foam applicators from scrapbook.com, which you'll see me use a little later. Those work amazing with stencils as well. As for blending different colors together where a lot of the background will show, I like the life-changing blender brushes from Picket Fence Studios. I recorded myself trying out the Distress inks on different types of paper for the first time. It was pretty humorous. You'll find these videos on my channel. I didn't know what I was doing, but I ended up making some pretty decent giraffe cards using a stencil. Even though I've been making cards for 5 years, I'm still new to YouTube. I enjoy graphic design and making videos, but I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of things. I'm open to suggestions on how I can make my videos better, so please leave a comment below if you have any tips you'd like to give me. So I've been using my dining room as my craft room for a few years now, and I've accumulated so much stuff that I've had nowhere to put anything. I've needed a cabinet or closet close by to put all of my stuff in because I've had everything in bins and drawers under the tables. But as I've accumulated more things, I've had things on tops of the tables too. At one point, we could still use my dining room table when we had guests over, but that was over 2 years ago. Can't believe I'm doing this, but here's a picture of my dining room. I know it's a mess and unorganized, but my youngest daughter moved out in January, and her bedroom has been sitting empty all this time. Well, I guess I should say mostly empty. Here's a picture of her room with the closets. There's tons of closet space and plenty of drawer space too. So with all this COVID mess and the stay-at-home orders, I've taken on the project of moving my craft room to the bedroom. Of course, I've had to rearrange everything, but I'll be posting a craft room tour video once I get everything put away and where I want it. But I'll be so happy to be done with it so I can get back to crafting and making new videos. Here I'm just making some dots in the sand. Now I'm taking some Dilution's Shimmer spray in Pure Sunshine color, and instead of spraying it, I'm placing a few drops on my glass media mat so I can paint it on with a paintbrush. I'm adding some of this shimmer to the sand. I just love the shimmer spray. It makes some beautiful backgrounds when you spray it. But I recently tried this technique of painting it on with a paintbrush, and I just love it. It adds so much interest to the card. Now I'm adding just a little bit of this Pure Sunshine in the streaks of her hair on the mermaid. Now I'm using the color Vibrant Turquoise to add some shimmer to the seaweed. it's time to make the mask for the digital stamps so I can apply the Distress Oxide inks to the background piece without getting the ink on the colored seafloor. I've printed out the same digital stamps I used for the background on a sheet of regular copy paper and placed it on my brother's scan and cut for it to scan. I had the machine scan the images and then I removed the copy paper and replaced it with the masking paper on the cutting mat. The masking paper that I used from Simon Says Stamp was 8.5 by 11, so I guess I could have printed the digital stamps directly on the masking paper, but I honestly didn't think about it. This way works too. I had the machine just cut out the images on the right since they were the same and I didn't need to cut out two of the same masks. I plan to reuse these for future cards. The bottom mermaid and turtle masks that I cut out were used for another card. I know it's kind of hard to tell in the video, but can you see the shimmer on that? Now I'm removing the backing from the mask and carefully placing it over the rock and seaweed grouping. I cut out another strip of the masking paper to cover up the sand that I had already colored and another piece to cover the little piece that's to the left. Now that everything is masked off, it's time for my favorite part, to apply the Distress Oxide inks. I'm starting off with peacock feathers around the seaweed grouping since it's the lightest color and I want it to have a glowing effect. I'm adding this same color to look like sun rays coming through the water. Next, I'm applying Mermaid Lagoon and then Faded Jeans. I'm just switching between the different colors to get that underwater look. I'm using the domed foam applicators as the blending tool. Next, I'm spritzing some water on top using my distress sprayer and patting it dry with a paper towel. I'm applying my heat gun to help speed up the drying process. There were a few water spots that I thought were too big, so I'm applying more ink to the top and then I heat set it again. Now I'm removing the masks for the big reveal. The one covering the seafloor was being stubborn. There was a piece that wouldn't come up, so I had to use my tweezers with the spatula on the end to try to scrape it up. I can't remember where I got this handy little tool from, but it's been wonderful. I use it all the time. Since my mask wasn't exactly the same size as the sand on the seafloor, I had to go back over the top of it with my Copic marker to cover up the white line. I also needed to cover up the white around the seaweed. The blending tool was too big, so I tried using a sponge dauber, but that was too big too, so then I went in with a paintbrush. I'm taking a piece of black glitter cardstock and cutting it to 4 by 5 1/4 to make my frame. Normally I'll use up the middle part of the glitter cardstock that doesn't show. Sometimes I'll cut out a smaller frame using a die, or I'll use my paper punches and cut out shapes. But I didn't do that for this video for the sake of time. This is one of the tricks I've learned so that I can stretch my supplies further. I've taken the sentiment and added a frame to it as well. I'm using a piece of 110-pound heavyweight cardstock from Recollections in the Ocean's color for my card base. This matches the peacock feathers distress ink perfectly. I'm gluing down the frame in the background with Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. This is my favorite liquid adhesive because it dries clear, so if any of the glue seeps out, it doesn't show. I've laid my Distress Inks storage tin on top of it to help it stay flat while it's drying. Off camera, I used my brother's scan and cut to cut out the mermaid and the seahorse. Then I applied 3D foam squares to the back of the sentiment, and then the mermaid, and then finally the seahorse. However, I had to switch to a smaller size foam for the seahorse tail because my squares were too big. To finish off the card, I added clear Wink of Stella to the mermaid tail and the wings of the seahorse. And then I added some Nuvo crystal drops in Morning Dew next to the mermaid and the seahorse. I love these drops because they take on the color of the background and they really do look like bubbles. Like I mentioned earlier, if you haven't seen my first mermaid shaker card video, please click on the box in the top right hand corner. I'll be adding another video tutorial for the last 2 cards soon, so please be sure to click the subscribe button so you don't miss it. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.